Joyce, answer me. Why is there an elderly couple I don't recognize living in the lake house I bought for you for $1.2 million? Her words froze the lively Christmas Eve dinner table in an instant. Clink. A dry, hollow sound echoed. Across from me, my father, Stanley, dropped the knife he was gripping onto his plate. My hand stopped halfway to my mouth, a piece of pumpkin pie balanced on my fork, and I slowly looked up. My grandmother's gaze, Helen's, shot past me and landed on my sister Phyllis, who was rigid beside me, and then on our parents. Having just returned from abroad after several years away, my grandmother seemed much stricter than before, wrapped in an aura that allowed no one to approach her lightly. "Grandma, what did you just say?" My voice trembled. Those words sounded too unreal for someone like me, who was barely scraping by to afford today's meal. "Didn't you hear me, Joyce? I'm talking about the lake house. The house I bought for you 3 years ago, for your future." Her voice was calm, but underneath it, I could feel something like boiling magma. "Grandma, could there be some mistake?" I gathered all my courage to speak. My heart was pounding. I don't own a house, not a lake house, not even my own apartment. I'm basically homeless right now. I got evicted from my apartment last month, and I've been couch surfing with friends ever since. "What?" My grandmother's eyebrow twitched slightly. I knew something was wrong. As soon as I got back, I went to check on the place to surprise you. You weren't there. Instead, an elderly couple I'd never seen before answered the door. They said they were the parents of Phyllis's husband, Kevin. "Phyllis, do you want to explain what's going on?" Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my sister's hand tremble as she held her wine glass. "Phyllis," I turned to her. Her eyes were darting back and forth. Her breathing was fast and shallow. "Grandma!" Phyllis cried out, almost shrieking. That must be some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe you got the address wrong. There are a lot of similar houses out there, and you just got back. You must be very tired." "That's right, Mom." My mother, Beverly, chimed in immediately. Beads of sweat dotted her forehead. "It's the jet lag. Your memories are mixed up. Now. The turkey's getting cold." "Quiet!" My grandmother's shout fell on my mother's words like a physical blow. Despite her age, her voice was so powerful that everyone at the table flinched. My mind hasn't failed me yet. The address, the exterior, it was the exact house whose contract I signed. And with that, my grandmother reached into her purse, pulled out a photograph, and slid it across the table. "This is what Kevin's parents told me while they were living in that house. We're staying in this house that belongs to our son's wife, Phyllis." The instant those words landed, the color drained completely from Phyllis's face. In the photo was a beautiful mansion by a lake, and in front of it, smiling for the camera, were Phyllis, her husband Kevin, and his parents. Care to explain this picture? Faced with irrefutable proof, the air in the dining room grew thick and heavy. I stared at the photo, doubting my own eyes. It was the same place Phyllis had bragged about on social media with the caption, "My new vacation home," while I was working myself to the bone at 3 part-time jobs. That was my house. What was happening? I stood up. "Mom, Dad, what is this? Grandma bought me a house, so why am I living like I'm homeless?" At my question, my father looked away uncomfortably. "Now, Mom, it's complicated. It's Christmas Eve. Talking about money over dinner isn't exactly proper, is it? We can sit down in my study tomorrow and discuss it properly." My grandmother cut him off coldly. "No, we're settling this right here, right now. Joyce, you truly don't know anything, do you, about the $1.2 million lake house I bought for you 3 years ago and how they've been using it?" $1.2 million. The room started to spin. My bank account balance when I checked it this morning was $25. Working 3 jobs, sacrificing sleep, just to see it all disappear on student loan payments and living expenses. $1.2 million was a number I couldn't even fathom. I don't know anything. I've never seen a lake house, and no one ever, not once, told me one was bought for me. Hearing this, My grandmother's expression softened slightly. A flicker of pity crossed her face, but vanished just as quickly, replaced by a hard stare as she turned to my parents. "Stanley, Beverly, you two told me, didn't you, that Joyce was mentally unstable and incapable of managing such a large asset, and that until she became independent, you would act as her guardians and manage the lake house on her behalf?" "What?" I couldn't believe my ears. "Wait, Mom, Dad, when exactly have I ever been mentally unstable? I graduated with top honors, and I've been working diligently ever since. I've never caused you a single problem." "Joyce, calm down," my mother said quietly. There was no concern in her eyes, only a warning. "You're getting emotional now, see? This is exactly what I mean by unstable." "Don't you dare!" I shot to my feet. The chair toppled behind me with a crash. "I am perfectly fine. You're the ones who are sick. When I couldn't pay my rent, you told me I wasn't trying hard enough and that I needed to be independent, didn't you? And yet, behind my back, you handed a house in my name over to Phyllis?" "Joyce, how dare you speak to your parents like that?" my father shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "We did it for your own good. You don't have the sense to manage assets, so we entrusted it to Phyllis. For my own good." The absurdity of it all left me so numb I couldn't even cry. "Oh, just shut up," Phyllis hissed. "A plain, boring woman like you doesn't deserve a house that beautiful anyway. We were just putting it to good use. You should be thanking us." "Phyllis, you..." My vision blurred with frustration. My whole body was shaking with rage. This is family? This is what people bound by blood do to each other? "That's enough." My grandmother's voice cut through the shouting. She rose slowly, leaning on her cane, and walked over to me. She then placed her hand gently on my trembling shoulder. "Joyce is right. All of you are rotten, rotten to the core." "Mom, that's too far," my father said, his face twisted. "We did everything for the good of the family." My grandmother looked down on him coldly. "There is no family here. Only hyenas who have been feasting on their own granddaughter's property. Tonight, this will all be settled." She took a phone from her pocket and hit a speed dial number. "Come in, please." "Yes, now." The front door opened, letting in a gust of cold night air along with a man. It was Mr. Allen, my grandmother's personal attorney. He was carrying a thick briefcase. "Mrs. Helen, I've brought all the documents as you instructed," Mr. Allen said in a professional tone, placing a heavy stack of papers on the table. "What is all this?" My father staggered backward. "Stanley, Beverly, and Phyllis," my grandmother declared. "I am now going to review every fraudulent act you have committed, one sheet at a time. Don't even think you can escape." I wiped my tears and lifted my head. The warmth of my grandmother's hand gave me strength. This was it. This was no time for tears. I had a duty to make them face the consequences they deserved. In the dining room, my small laugh echoed. I stood up slowly, shedding the mask of the frightened victim I had worn until now. Pretending to dab at tears with my napkin, I looked at my family with cold, unforgiving eyes. "Enough with the act, Grandma." "Yes, of course, Joyce. This has been quite amusing," my grandmother replied, planting herself firmly beside me, her cane thudding on the floor. My father, mother, and Phyllis were struck dumb by our sudden transformation. Joyce, why are you laughing?" my mother asked, her voice trembling. "You don't see it? You don't realize you've been played?" I told her coolly. I continued without mercy. "A week ago, Grandma contacted me. Not through you, but through my aunt. She said, 'It seems the family has been intercepting my letters and deliberately isolating you.' From that moment, we knew everything. And that's why we set the stage for tonight, for this so-called Christmas Eve dinner. We waited for the moment you'd let your guard down and confess to your crimes in your own words." "What? You set us up?" My father turned pale and tried to stand. "Sit down." A single word from my grandmother pinned him to his chair. "This isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning." My grandmother looked at the lawyer. Mr. Allen, please, let's start with the forged gift deed. The handwriting analysis is complete. Mr. Allen slid a document to the center of the table. It was a copy of a public property record. This property, the lakefront estate, was originally purchased by Mrs. Helen in the name of Joyce. However, the currently registered owner is Phyllis, her younger sister. The date of transfer is October 15th, 3 years ago. The stated price was a $1 donation. $1. That was the price of my life. I stared at the date. October, 3 years ago, exactly when I graduated and began drowning in student loan payments and living expenses, the moment my life went off the rails. I always thought something was wrong, I said quietly. I graduated with top honors. I had recommendation letters from my professors and made it to the final interviews at several major corporations, and yet somehow they all rejected me without explanation. I fixed my gaze on my father. He looked away. Around that time, anonymous emails were sent to the HR departments of the companies I was about to join, emails stating that Joyce suffered from a severe mental illness and had been a troublemaker in college. "What are you talking about?" He tried to play dumb. "Connection logs don't lie, Dad. The emails were sent from this house, and the timestamps match the hours you were in your study. You deliberately pushed me into unemployment, didn't you? Because if I became independent, you could no longer commit fraud using my name." "No, it was for your own good." "And you, Mom," I said, turning to her. "I finally understand why, no matter how hard I worked, I could never save money, and why I was always rejected on credit card applications." Mr. Allen produced a stack of bank statements. "This is the account Joyce used for her student loan payments. She deposited money every month from her part-time jobs. However, the funds were being automatically rerouted, not to the loan servicer, but to a hidden account in Beverly's name." My mother gasped. "And yet, Mom, you kept telling me I wasn't trying hard enough, that I should be more like Phyllis. Because of you, I was reported as delinquent to the credit bureaus. I couldn't even rent a decent apartment. You destroyed my credit. You forced me to work 3 jobs and still live in fear of ending up on the street." My mother covered her mouth with trembling hands. "My poverty wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a lack of effort. It was a cage, carefully and deliberately built by my own parents." "And you, Phyllis?" I turned to my sister. She glared back as if she were the victim. "Kevin's parents are living in the lake house, aren't they?" "So what if they are?" Phyllis replied, lifting her chin. "Kevin's mom and dad retired and wanted a quiet place to live, so I let them stay there." "What's wrong with that? It's better than letting the house sit empty." "You let them stay?" I raised an eyebrow. "For free?" "Of course, they're family. Don't lie." I gave Mr. Allen a slight nod. Wordlessly, he produced the next document. "These are deposit records for a bank account in the name of Phyllis," Mr. Allen read calmly. "On the first of every month, $2,500 is transferred from Kevin's parents' account. The transfer memo reads, rent." My grandmother spoke first. "Phyllis, so not only did you steal Joyce's house, but you also used it to collect rent from your in-laws." "No, that's not it," Phyllis yelled. "It was a maintenance fee. It's a huge house. It costs money to keep it up. Besides, Kevin's parents are wealthy. $2,500 a month is nothing to them." "That's not the point," I said, my voice low but firm. "You took my house without permission and made $2,500 a month from it. Meanwhile, I, the rightful owner, could barely afford food for the next day. Did you know that?" Phyllis's eyes darted away. "Mom, listen." My father leaned forward, trying to intervene. "Yes, maybe the way we did it was a bit harsh, but look at the result. The house is well maintained, and Phyllis's in-laws are happy. Isn't it much better for the family overall than letting Joyce live there alone? We can always give Joyce some money later. A settlement, right? Compensation, and we can put this all behind us." "Compensation," my grandmother repeated quietly. The stem of the wine glass in her hand creaked ominously. When my granddaughter was on the verge of sleeping on the street, You were living in luxury on her property, and now you think you can fix it with compensation. But Mom, Joyce is still young. Hardship builds character. No, shut up. My grandmother's roar echoed through the room. I wrote to Joyce every month. I asked her, "How is the house? Are you having any trouble?" But I never received a single reply. Instead, Stanley would tell me, "Joyce is so unstable she can't even write a thank you note." I shook my head. Not a single letter ever reached me. "Of course not," my grandmother said coldly, turning back to my parents. "Every letter I sent was addressed to this house. You claimed Joyce was unstable and said you would hold them for her, and you never gave me her real address. You crushed my letters, and you also cut off all of Joyce's contact with me, didn't you?" "It's just that," my mother cried. "You were so busy working overseas." The reason my grandmother and I couldn't stay in touch was no longer a mystery. The physical distance and the malicious wall my parents had built between us. Everything finally clicked, revealing the ugly truth of what they had done. "Enough excuses," I said, taking a deep breath and signaling to Mr. Allen. "Let's confirm the facts from a legal standpoint." Mr. Allen displayed on his tablet the supposed transfer agreement Phyllis was using as the basis for her ownership claim. "Miss Phyllis, you stated earlier that this document represents a legitimate transfer from Joyce 3 years ago." "That's right. Yes, just look at the date," Phyllis shouted, drenched in sweat. "Indeed, it says that here. We'll address the handwriting in a moment, but first we ran a digital forensic analysis on the paper itself." He pressed a button, and a magnified image of the document appeared. Beneath the paper fibers, a pattern of tiny, imperceptible dots emerged. "This is a printer identification code. Many color laser printers embed microscopic yellow dots that record the printer's serial number and the date and time of printing." "What?" Phyllis's mouth fell open. "After analyzing these dots, we have determined that this document was printed exactly 6 months ago." "How odd," I said with a cold smile. "Why would a contract supposedly signed 3 years ago be on paper printed just 6 months ago?" Then I spoke slowly and clearly. "In other words, this document was fabricated 6 months ago." I looked at my father, my mother, and finally, Phyllis. "And I can think of the exact reason you suddenly needed to forge it 6 months ago." My father's face turned ashen. 6 months ago, Grandma contacted you and said, 'My work is finally stabilizing. I might be coming home soon,' didn't she?" I continued. "You panicked. Until then, you had been illegally occupying Joyce's house and treating it as Phyllis's, with nothing more than verbal promises. But the moment Grandma returned and checked the property records, your lies would be exposed. So you scrambled to forge documents to create legal cover. That's not... But if you had asked me to sign it, I would have caught on. So Phyllis copied my handwriting and forged the signature, backdating it 3 years, right?" My father grabbed his head and groaned. I had hit the nail on the head. For 3 years they had done as they pleased, confident that my grandmother would never return. But the moment they heard she might, they panicked and rushed to manufacture evidence. That panic was what led to their fatal mistake. Mr. Allen continued mercilessly. "According to the handwriting analysis, this signature matches the handwriting of Miss Phyllis with a 99% probability. This constitutes forgery of a private document and use of a forged instrument. Furthermore, Miss Phyllis impersonated Joyce's legal representative and withdrew $1.2 million from an account in Joyce's name, under the guise of maintenance costs for the lake house. That constitutes fraud and embezzlement." "Fraud?" Phyllis began to tremble uncontrollably. "Prison. This can't be real. Dad, say something. You were the one who said, 'As long as we backdate it, it'll be fine.'" "You idiot! Shut your mouth!" my father screamed, but it was too late. "The prosecutor's office has already been notified," Mr. Allen said calmly. "Miss Phyllis, a criminal complaint will be filed against you immediately." "No, no, no, no." Phyllis clutched her head and burst into tears. My dad told me to do it. He said Joyce is dumb, that she'd never find out. He told me to just copy her signature. I only did what I was told. What, Phyllis, are you selling out your own father? My father roared. But it's true. Mom said it too. She laughed and said Joyce would never be able to pay off her student loans anyway, so we might as well use the money. Phyllis, don't say another word, my mother shrieked, lunging toward her. It was a horrible scene. The very people who had just been talking about family ties and love were now desperately slinging accusations, trying to shift the blame onto each other. My grandmother watched the spectacle with cold eyes and spoke quietly. That's enough. At her voice, the screaming stopped dead. I've seen enough of your ugliness. Do not tarnish this table any further. She turned to Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen, the amendment to my will is ready, correct? Yes, Mrs. Helen, Mr. Allen replied, producing a new set of documents. This is the most recent will. It completely revokes the inheritance rights of Stanley, Beverly, and Phyllis, as well as their spouses and descendants, and designates Joyce as the sole heir to the entire estate. The entire estate? My parents screamed in unison. Mom, please wait, anything but that. We're sorry, we'll reflect, please. Any trace of pride was gone, leaving only desperate people clinging to money. My mother followed suit. I'm sorry, Mom. It was a moment of weakness. I won't do it again. Please, reconsider. My grandmother looked down on them and replied in an icy voice, If you want to apologize, apologize to Joyce. She is the victim, not me. My parents' and Phyllis's eyes swiveled to me at once, pleading, fawning, and underneath it all, that same old assumption. We're family, so she'll forgive us. I slowly raised my wine glass and took a sip. Then I smiled sweetly. No, I have no mercy for you. The only thing I have is an invoice. I accepted the final document from Mr. Allen. This is a demand for restitution for unjust enrichment over the past 3 years, plus damages for emotional distress. The total amount due is $2.4 million. If it is not paid by tomorrow, criminal action will be initiated immediately. $2.4 million, my father screamed. There's no way we have that kind of money. Then sell what you do have, I said coolly. Your house, your cars, your jewelry, and that house where Kevin's parents are staying. They will be evicted immediately. No, Phyllis collapsed onto the floor. Evict Kevin's mom and dad? If I do that, he'll divorce me. Not my problem. That's your problem, Phyllis. I cut her off without emotion. When I lost my job and my credit was destroyed, were you worried about me? No, you mocked me. Now it's your turn to taste that same misery. Just then, there was a sharp knock on the dining room door, and 2 detectives entered, holding up badges. Phyllis, come with us to the station. No, help me. I didn't do anything wrong, Phyllis screamed as she was led away. Then my parents, still in shock, were also handcuffed. Joyce, I'm sorry, Joyce. My mother sobbed, looking at me through tears. I was wrong. Please, please, drop the charges. Goodbye, Mom, I said, not looking away. You'll have plenty of time to count the wrinkles on your face in prison. As the sirens faded into the distance, only my grandmother, Mr. Allen, and I remained in the vast dining room. I let out a long sigh. It wasn't fatigue. It was relief, as if a curse had finally been lifted. It's over, Grandma. Yes, it's over, she said softly, pulling me into a hug. No, actually, that's not quite right. This is where it begins. Your real life. It's been a year since that night. I'm now standing on the wooden deck of the lakefront estate. This place is truly mine. Phyllis, her husband, and his parents were forcibly evicted within 72 hours of that night. Kevin's parents claimed they had been led to believe the house belonged to their daughter-in-law and that they were victims too. However, because they had lived there knowing the rent was suspiciously low and the contract was flawed, they were questioned as potential accomplices. Phyllis was sentenced to 3 years in prison and is currently incarcerated. She was divorced by Kevin and left completely ruined by the restitution payments and legal fees. My parents lost all social credibility, and the extended family cut them off completely. My father's company went bankrupt, and I heard they are now barely getting by in a small apartment, but I don't even have their contact information, nor do I want it. As for me, I started a new business in this quiet home: online consulting, financial planning, and victim advocacy. When I began sharing my own harrowing experiences, the response was overwhelming. Before I knew it, my schedule was booked months in advance, and my income grew dozens of times over what I made working 3 jobs. I am no longer dependent on anyone. I have achieved complete financial independence. On weekends, my grandmother comes to stay, and we sit by the fireplace talking and laughing as if we're reclaiming the 3 years that were stolen from us. One day, looking out calmly at the lake, she said, "You didn't just take back the future they stole from you. With integrity and courage, you built an even brighter one. This is my home, the place I protect, the place I love." "I'm happy, Grandma," I said from the bottom of my heart.